Or what about this? A tribe of asparagus children, but they're self-conscious about the way their pee smells.
Hi there, and welcome to Baseball by Design. I am SportsLogos.net minor league baseball correspondent Paul Caputo, broadcasting live, as always, from the Sunday Helmet Hall of Fame in my basement in Fort Collins, Colorado.
And I am Dan Simon, broadcasting from the Studio Simon headquarters in Louisville, Kentucky.
Dan, good morning. Hello, how are you?
Good morning, Paul. I am fantastic. How are you?
Dan, I'm doing very well. It's a beautiful, sunshiny day here in Fort Collins, Colorado. It's uplifting. At the time of this recording, we're not too far removed from, we had the World Series. Not only do we have the World Series, though, we had the Nippon Series, where my Hanshin Tigers fell to the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks, 4-1. The Tigers won game one and then couldn't hang on. So nobody jumping into the Donbori River in celebration. All of the Colonel Sanders statues are safe in the town of Osaka. Wait till next year for the Hanshin Tigers.
I am sorry. My condolences to you and all the other Hanshin Tiger fans.
Yeah, my buddy Masa, I watched some of the games with him across the sea. There's the magic of FaceTime video, right? Like, pretty incredible. And as soon as it was over, I said, Masa, I'm sorry. And then he said, next year. And so, he was ready. He's ready to move on, even though he's a diehard fan. I'm sure he was disappointed. Speaking of bodies of water into which people might jump, the Stockton Ports play in Stockton, California, and they're named for the fact that they're right there on the body of water. I don't know, with maybe the industry that is suggested by the name ports, that people are necessarily jumping into that body of water. So maybe that was not as smooth a transition as I like to make sometimes.
That was good enough. I was going to see if I can get in another segue.
Oh, yeah.
You had mentioned, when I asked how you were doing, you mentioned the great weather you're having. And one of the words you used to describe how you feel or how the weather made you feel was uplifting. And that made me think about, you are going to be having Jason Klein on as a guest on this episode. And Brandiose did an All-Star Game logo for the Stockton Ports a number of years ago. And the logo, it's very interesting. Credit to Brandiose for being able to turn this into what was, frankly, a visually compelling logo. The logo featured 2 cranes holding up in the air shipping containers, the kind of cranes that take shipping containers off of the ships and the cargo ships and bring them onto the land. And the All-Star Game was California League against the Carolina League. So on one of the shipping containers, it said California or California League, I don't remember. And on the other, it said Carolina or Carolina League. And I thought it was a great solution using shipping containers. You wouldn't necessarily think that would make for the greatest logo, but they pulled it off. Kudos to Brandiose.
Well, that is an interesting solution for sure. And All-Star Game logos, that's a whole separate world in and of itself. That shipping container thing that you're talking about, the cranes that take the shipping containers off the cargo ships. I once did a guided tour out in San Francisco, and they were talking about how that job is one of the most psychologically intense and stressful jobs that there is. And these guys have to, they can only work for like a very limited amount of time. And then they are obligated to take breaks because this is, the consequences of screwing up on that job are enormous. And whenever I see the cargo ships, all filled with those, the containers, the shipping containers, it makes me it makes me remember that tour where I learned that about those. So yeah, a port is nothing to be trifled with. There's a lot of sort of stress and industry that's happening there. It sort of has this gritty feeling about it. Stockton, California is located at the terminus of the San Joaquin River, and there is a big shipping industry there. And so that's, of course, where this team got its name. But then also, they live in one of the places, if not the only place, that calls itself the asparagus capital of the world. That's what I'm going to be talking to Jason Klein about later on in this episode, about the work that they did on two asparagus-based brands.
I'm sorry to hear when you went on that tour and you learned how stressful that job was. I was sorry to hear about that because I was talking with somebody the other day about it was a friend of mine who said he's going to be retiring soon. I asked him what is he going to do in retirement, and he told me what he was going to do. And then he asked me, if and when you ever retire, what are you going to do? And what I plan on doing, if and when that happens, was well, it's now past tense. What I planned on doing was being a shipping crane operator. But now, after hearing how stressful it is, I'm not going to do that.
Well, here's the thing. You grew up on the East Coast. You grew up within shouting distance of the Jersey Shore. Surely you spent a lot of time on the boardwalk, and you spent a lot of time playing that game where it's got the little crane that moves from side to side, and you've got to position it so that it drops down and grabs like the little stuffed duck or whatever. The claw, right? So if you were really good at that game, you may just be, inclined towards being really good at that job. So maybe it would be less stressful for you.
Paul, I have to be completely open and honest here. I have never once played that game. And I'll tell you why.
Because it's a scam.
Yeah, I have never seen anybody successfully grab something. Now, people have. It's happened.
Sure.
But I have never seen it with my own eyes. And I've seen that claw. And by the way, the claw, that's from Toy Story.
Yeah.
Okay. I have seen them position that claw right over the object.
Yeah.
It goes and it grabs the object, and then they go to pull it up, and the object's sitting there unmoved by it. So
it's almost as if those game operators don't want you to take the stuff that's in there.
We really got off track here. So
we do that. Yeah, Dan, Dan, let's we definitely do that. Let's get to the interviews, and then we will come back and you'll have a studio Simon stumper for us. I can't wait.
But you're going to have to, but it won't be too long.
All right, everyone, welcome to the podcast. For the very first time, Pat Filippone, who is the president and co-owner of the Stockton Ports, among other adventures in minor league baseball. That we're talking about the Ports on this episode, so we'll focus on that. Pat, hello, how are you doing?
Doing great, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for hopping on to talk about the Stockton Ports. This is a team that has a lot of equity. It's been around for a long time, and you have been with that team since 2006. We were just chatting before we started this recording here. So you are deeply entrenched in the heritage of the Stockton Ports. So I can ask you this question. What's a Stockton Port? Why is a team in Stockton, California called the Ports?
Yeah, well, the reason is Stockton has the furthest inland port on the West Coast. So right beyond right field is the delta that feeds into eventually the Pacific Ocean. So it's a working port in the city of Stockton, still a main economic driver in the community, was very prevalent in World War II times, and been an operating port for, who knows, 100 plus years. So that is why the team is called the Ports. The initial ballpark was in the middle of the city, wasn't on the water. And when the city and the team decided to build a new ballpark after the turn of the 21st century, they settled on a site downtown on the water. So we were right on the delta, and the port is, I don't know. I'm not a boat guy myself, so I don't know what the nautical miles is, but driving wise, it's less than a mile away. So where the port's located. So that's where the name of the team came from.
So you do have, you say you're not a boat guy, but a lot of the history of the Ports logos, you have different sort of ship themed logos. You've had some different versions of that along the way. The anchor, the boat, the letters, S and P, and some of them just a baseball with the word Ports. This team has been around for a while. That name has stuck for a while. Clearly, that's important to the community. The fact that it lays that historical claim to being the furthest inland port along the river there. Why when you look at Stockton as a city, why is that such an important factor to Stockton, that inland port there?
But again, the economic impact of it's huge. I mean, obviously we have, if you talk about the 21st century, the various crops that come, it's an agriculture area. So a lot of crops get produced, put on ships and shipped outward from here. Incoming, similar things that you need for commerce of the state. And so they'll get picked up and stocked and then driven throughout the West Coast, quite frankly. So it's a matter of pride, economic impact, obviously. And while the employment numbers of the port probably aren't as significant as they were 80 years ago when the team started, it's still a significant, impactful economic driver in the city, and people are just proud of it having the water. And that is a surprise to everyone that our ballpark sits on a body of water when we're so far inland.
That body of water is the San Joaquin River. You all are 80 miles east of San Francisco Bay. So it's just a quick just setting of the picture here for for folks who might not be familiar with the area. One of the logos that you all unveiled relatively recently in the grand scheme of this brand is the tugboat batting practice cap, which took sort of an element out of the brand previously and really called out this tugboat. That might be my favorite of the ports logos here is this batting practice cap from 2021. What went into the decision to call that boat out and put it on its own cap?
Well, the history of the ports is significant in the industry and the community, and I mean, my passion at the end of the day is baseball, the history of baseball, the game of baseball, and I love celebrating the history. We do an annual alumni event each year, so 15 years ago, we went back to dig up old pictures of ports players from the 40s and the 50s because I was getting these guys to come back and visit the ballpark and to honor them. And we found a lot of cool logos from back in the day. And that tugboat was represented prominently in the uniform in the late 40s, early 50s. So we took a modern approach to presenting it in various ways. And then it always was very popular with the fans. So we decided to put it on a hat and made it our official BP hat after we had it on some other hats that did sold well and people responded to it well. So that's the genesis of that. It's a takeoff, slight variation from an original logo from the late 40s, early 50s.
So the current franchise has been around since 2002. Do I have that right? 2002 is
No,
when.
we've actually been here since 1941. So what the history of that is we were here in 41 when the Cal League started. So we were a charter member of the Cal League. The league shut down in World War II. The first year the team was called the Stockton Flyers in 1941. I know it's based on there was an Air Force base close by, is where they
Okay.
got the Flyers moniker. And when they came back, because of the Navy and everything else from World War II, the port became more prominent, changed the name of the team to the Ports. Now, fast forward to the 70s, there was no team here for a few years. And talking to some of the people that were around then, the economic malaise of the country in the mid 70s kept the attendance down. So the team relocated somewhere, but the Cali always wanted to come back to Stockton, and they did with the Mariners in 78 or 79. Then they went back the next year to the Ports when they became a Milwaukee franchise affiliate and stayed that way until 2000 when the owners at that time, not our group, were trying to get a new ballpark built, and they decided to change the name of the team to the Mudville Nine because Stockton has the argument that this is the basis of Casey at the bat. There's a Stockton in Western Mass that also says they're the Stockton, but people here will fight you over that, as I'm sure people there fight over. So anyway, that Mudville Nine lasted for 2000 and 2001, wasn't well received, and so when our group bought the team in 2002, we brought it back to Stockton Ports. So that's where you get the 2002. But the Ports name, pretty much from 46 through 99, save those few years in the 70s, was prevalent and in place.
So that brand that exists to date is the one that you all brought in 2002. The existing Stockton Ports. I know you've had a lot of updates and some alternate logos and whatnot, but the primary brand, to my knowledge, has been unchanged since 2002 when you all came in.
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
There's been some tweaks to the primary. We opened the new ballpark where we're currently, it's not new anymore, in 2005. There were some updates done then as well. And then we've done some alternate and some different playing around with the dock theme. Like we did a 5 o'clock dock stevedore character.
Yeah.
It still does very well for us, but it's an alternate take on the ports by looking at it from a different perspective. And so, yes, the branding is very important to any team, obviously, but for us with the history and how we like to integrate the community into everything we do, it takes a prominent spot with, what the message we try to convey.
Well, and you mentioned 5 o'clock dock, and I know that you all have done some things with asparagus in the past,
Yeah,
including 5 o'clock dock holding a stalk of asparagus over his shoulder.
correct. Yeah.
You have had the Aspara-guys, which is very funny, and you've played with asparagus nights. So obviously, you mentioned agriculture earlier in this interview. It's Stockton's an agricultural area, asparagus capital of the world. There may be debate over where the Mudville Nine actually played. I think it was in Stockton, by the way. I think it was you guys. I'll state
Yeah.
that for the record. But asparagus and asparagus, asparagus capital of the world. Where does that claim come from, and why was it important to you all to integrate that as an alternate brand?
Well, the city for many years has said they're the asparagus capital of the world. So Asparagus Festival was an annual big event in town. And so when we started playing around with some different things to play with around the Asparagus Festival, we said, hey, let's do some asparagus branding with what we're doing. We did some alternate uniforms with asparagus. We didn't call ourselves asparagus guys back then. That was probably like 2007, 8, 9, and 10. We sold asparagus at the ballpark. We did some variations of fried asparagus and so on and so forth. And then when the themes, which are still very strong now, I don't know if it's the overkill, but the food theme team names, we said, all right, let's really make the name Asparagus one night or one weekend a year. So that's how we leaned into it. But it's basically just again the civic pride of the area, trying to point that out to folks, and that it's just something that people are proud of, that the area is known as the asparagus capital of the world. Whether factually it still is or not, I don't know, but it's still something that the area is very proud of.
That, I mean, a lot of this was happening in, like 2013, 2016. The Aspara-guys, I believe, was 2019, if I have that correctly. That's when I wrote about it on sportslogos.net anyway. That predates a lot of the really wacky alternate identities that you're seeing now. You mentioned the food-based alternate identities. So, in a lot of ways, the ports, who have a fairly conservative identity with the ports identity, we're getting into this sort of wackier side of things with the asparagus. Are you finding with your fan base there that they lean one direction or the other? Do they like the sort of traditional ports-based logos, or are they more into like the asparagus, asparagus cartoon character?
I think they like both. I don't think that they would be receptive to full blown doing asparagus all the time. I think they like the fact that we either do it on one special night or one weekend. We've done both through the years. It resonates because it's so relevant, but it's a short, brief, special kind of event at the ballpark. Then you come back to the tried and true brand. I do agree that a lot of the teams now utilize it a lot. And who's to say every market's different? It may work quite a bit, but doing it on an annual basis works well for us.
Who do you think would win a fight? The Asparagus mascot versus the Wilmington Blue Rocks Mr. Celery?
Going asparagus all the way. No question. No question.
One of the things you all have done a fair amount of, outside of alternate identities, is theme nights, especially related to music. What's the interest in music there, and what are some examples of those theme nights that you've done?
Yeah, I'm very passionate about music, and I like going to concerts. So I can go back early in my career. I went to when Kiss first reunited in the mid '90s. I went to a Kiss show, and I was sitting there before the concert. I was like, this place sold 19,000 seats in 45 minutes. Like I got 4,000 seats. What can we do? And then decided to do a Kiss night in the mid '90s with a different team, and it did unbelievably well. So the passion of music fans, whether they're baseball fans full time or not, you can mix the two in the summer. So in Stockton, the best one we did was a CCR night, Creedence Clearwater Revival night, which on the side I would say is probably the greatest American rock band. But their song Lodi is a very popular song, and Lodi is a city north of Stockton that's in our county. Used to have a team in the Cal League during the '70s, and through the early 80s actually. But so we wore Lodi on our shirts and did a CCR night, and it did great. Basically sold out the night. Cool branding on our with our colors with Lodi. Played CCR music all night, which everyone loves. You can't go wrong. So we've done Rolling Stones, Beatles. Everyone does Buffett these days. We did that. We've done Grateful Dead. So there have been some very cool music theme nights, which are more challenging to do now with the current PDL system for the legal reasons that are in place that oversee us. But we've been proud of those, and we try to, if something cool in the community happens, like Aaron Judge is from here. So when he won Rookie of the Year, we did an Aaron Judge night. Didn't really play with our uniforms with the name of the team, but we did a lot of things around Aaron Judge and his high school career. And his parents came out, and so we try to be topical, like most minor league teams do, but try to take areas of civic pride and just present it to the market. Because 70 games, 66 now is a lot of games, so you can be creative. You want to be creative to have some variety to get people to come out.
Well, and that sort of loops back to my last question, basically, which is, we mentioned the Ports brand has been basically the same since about 2002. Are there ever conversations? I mean, it's almost a quarter century. That's an eternity in minor league baseball. How do you stay relevant in this ever-changing landscape of minor league baseball? And are there ever conversations about either updating the brand or even, adopting a new name?
Yeah, no, we've never had a discussion on a name, and I don't think we would do that. Again, the prior ownership did that and it flopped.
Yeah.
And again, the pride that we have in wearing Stockton and the ballpark is Stockton Ballpark, Banner Island Ballpark. So we wouldn't do that. We've talked occasionally about maybe tweaking some of the logos even more than we've done already. The red, white, and blue color theme we wouldn't change as our primary. Some people have asked us to go to the green and gold for the A's, but as the A's are moving around, it just doesn't make sense. We like to have our own identity. So I would say we've had various discussions that usually end up being other theme nights or other tweaks for special events, but nothing on the major primary name, color scheme, marks we've talked about occasionally, like changing the BP hat a few years ago was our official 3 logos that we can wear on field full time in the guide. We did change that, but other than that, we've been pretty consistent with our main brand.
Well, like you say, it has a lot of equity going all the way back to 1946 with that Ports name, right? Like, so that's it would be hard to get away from that for sure. This is something that I know the answer to because I'm already on it, but for the sake of our listeners, where can people find your store with all of this merch, with the 5 o'clock dock and the asparagus and these great Ports logos? Where can people find your store online, and where can people find the Ports on social media?
So StocktonPorts.com is our website, and the store syncs up into that as well. We have all the social media channels linked on our website, but you can search those as well. And then our physical location is right at the ballpark in downtown Stockton, 404 West Fremont Street. So if you're local or visiting or coming through, stop by. I'd love to say hi. But if not, online 24/7, you can get our stuff.
Well, I hope to get out there someday as part of our Baseball Palooza road trip. We'll see if we can't get back to California for that. In the meantime, Pat, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun to learn about the Ports. And now we're going to go talk to Jason Klein from Brandios about asparagus a little bit here. So, Pat, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. My friend Jason Klein out in sunny San Diego at Brandios headquarters right now. How are you?
72 degrees and sunny. That's it. That's it all the time.
Jason, it was sub 30 when I went running in Colorado this week.
Ooh.
So yeah, that's my own dumb fault for getting up at and running at 5:45 in the morning though. That's
I mean, you're a warrior though.
I'm a dumbass, I think. But anyway, this Stockton Ports brand is very serious, sort of port based, like they've got the whole navigation thing. They've got this whole sort of history around their ports there. We are not talking about that brand. We are talking about the brand that you all created for them on their character, who I have been calling Asparagus.
Gus is Stockton is the asparagus capital of America.
Yeah.
And so Gus is the running asparagus.
Oh, so Gus is the running asparagus, And then
Yeah.
there's also 5 o'clock Doc.
Yes.
Well, and you
Who
did
is
both
like
of
the
them.
sort of like Popeye guy.
Yeah. He's the Popeye guy, and you did both of them.
That's correct.
Okay, very good. All right, I wanted to make sure I was totally clear on that. So, all
Yes.
right, let's talk about because I really do like asparagus. On a recent episode, we were talking about Mr. Celery,
Yeah.
and so this is another green stalkish vegetable that you guys turned into a fun mascot. How in the world do you take every kid's least favorite vegetable and make it a fun minor league baseball mascot?
Well, they have I think they have an asparagus festival in Stockton.
Yes.
So it was beloved enough, but there's this conversation about like, well, wait a second, like, can we make asparagus like an actual character? It's like, yes, absolutely. We do have Mr. Celery on the East Coast. We need Gus the asparagus on the West Coast. So absolutely, yeah. It was a no brainer, and this one was a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. This is a team that has a lot of stuff going on here. So, so he's running.
Yeah.
I feel like Mr. Celery looks like a little more cynical than Gus, and Gus is just pure joy, right? Like he's got
I
this
mean,
big,
how can you not be? How can you
but
not be? When you're the
he's
asparagus capital of the world, you
yes,
gotta love it.
yeah. I wonder how many other cities there are out there, and how many other places call themselves the asparagus capital of the world. Because I know there's
I
like 5 blueberry capitals of the world here. So I wonder if
Oh, I
anyone,
see. I see.
yeah, I wonder if anyone's
I see.
challenging
Well, there's like
Stockton, California.
400 craft beer capitals of America, so not to worry, everybody.
So this Gus character, he's running. He's got a bat on his. He doesn't have shoulders, but it looks
No.
like where his shoulder would be if he's running with that bat on that shoulder
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
So this is just a fun character, completely separate, completely independent from the brand. The ports, the rest of their brand.
Yeah.
When you're doing an alternate identity like this, and it's so different
Yeah.
from their primary brand, do you just have to completely divorce yourself from that other brand? Can you even consider it as part of
No,
the?
no, no. Bring it together. Bring it together.
Oh
Because
yeah.
I mean, my whole thing was like, there's the swinging friar, there's Mr. Met, there's Mr. Redlegs. Some of these characters have nothing to do with, the identity. So, in terms of like Mr. Met and like, baseball headed character and like the Metropolitans. So, I always say like bring it in. So, I think I think Gus was originally a sleeve patch. So we want to have these characters that are part of it that really add color and don't make the uniforms just like one note. It's like, oh, they're the Gophers, got a gopher, like, there's no personality to it. There's no
Right.
flavor to it,
Right.
it's watered down. So yeah, we like to bring in different elements. And I think part of that too is whether you're seeing it in social media, photos, maybe you're in person when the team comes to play your team in your town. So maybe they're on the road. It's a great conversation starter. Wait a second, what is that green thing? They're the ports. Stockton is the largest inland port in I think in America, actually. Definitely on the West Coast. Definitely on the West Coast.
Okay.
It's largest inland port. So it's like, okay, the ports, I get that. But like, what is this green thing on it? Looks like an asparagus, right?
Right.
And it's like, why is that? And then you Google Stockton asparagus. You're sitting in your seat. 5 minutes later, you've like learned a few things about Stockton, asparagus capital of the world, and you're like, you know what? I might actually want to buy that hat. So we've definitely shifted. Our strategy now is road uniforms should be symbolizing like pop-up shops in another team's stadium.
Oh,
So
I love this idea,
yeah.
right? Because like you go to a minor league baseball game, to me, I almost don't care who's the home team and who's the away team. If there's a fun brand, I want it.
Well, back in the day, it was like, yeah, black lettering, no names on the back, each gray uniform, call it a day. We don't want to spend the money, right? So how many minor league games you go to where the home team's got real great flashy uniforms, and the road team looks like, they didn't spend $1. So we're like, well, wait a minute. What is the opportunity here? Well, the opportunity here is to basically do a pop-up shop on the road. Every time you go on the road, it should be a pop-up shop. Like you should be trying to grab, a little bit of the pocketbook of the team, while you're traveling, the other team.
Absolutely. By the way, a quick Google search here. There's at least Oceana County, Michigan, and Hadley, Massachusetts both claim asparagus capital of the world, along with Stockton, California. Only one of these teams has a minor league baseball team that has
That's right.
asparagus on their uniform,
That's right.
and two asparagus themed characters.
Asparagus.
Asparagus.
I think
You've got
asparagus is
it.
plural. Could be.
Very nice. Thank you for that note. I appreciate it. I didn't want the well actually crowd coming after me here. But 5 o'clock Doc, you described him as a Popeye character. He's
Yeah.
got the anchor tattoo. He's got the letter S tattoo. He's got a baseball tattoo. He's got the Popeye hat coming down over one eye, and he's holding a gigantic asparagus. Is the asparagus gigantic, or is 5 o'clock Doc
Ooh,
tiny?
great question.
Thank you. It's a question of scale.
It is Stockton's like, it's like a no nonsense town, right?
Yeah.
Like it's got some toughness.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's when you're ready to go to battle, you bring a giant asparagus. That's what you do.
So it's a giant asparagus. Very
That's
good.
right.
And you say it's a tough town. I imagine, that asparagus looks to be just the right length where, like, the base of that asparagus is going to be pretty tough. And they're just going to eat it anyway. Just get that fiber.
I
Yeah.
mean, eat that fiber. That's
Yeah.
right.
So
That's right.
while running Gus is pure joy with
Yeah.
big wide eyes and his big smile,
Yeah.
a 5 o'clock Doc here, he's got the 5 o'clock shadow. He's got a
Yeah.
grimace. He's got one
Yeah.
eye covered. He's got the white
No
tank top with the
nonsense.
tats here. Very different character here. What's
Yeah.
he representing?
I just, no nonsense, straightforward. Let's
Yeah.
go get him. It's Deadpool and Wolverine, Like that's you got to have that contrast.
That is Deadpool and Wolverine. I kind of love that, actually. They did, when they first introduced this whole, like, asparagus theme, and they had asparagus night, they actually had a uniform that was like a photographic image of asparagus, and then
Right.
just the script ports across it. So they're not holding back on this. You don't happen to know if they did any, like, asparagus themed, like, concessions or anything, do you?
That's a great question I don't have the answer to.
Yeah. My mom would have gotten them. My mom, who snuck celery into Mr. Celery Night at the Wilmington Blue Rocks, she would have gotten some asparagus at a
Is
baseball game.
she like is she like a veggie fanatic?
She just likes to eat healthy. She doesn't want, greasy ballpark food, and so,
Okay.
like, she's just not going to do the we go to the Wilmington Blue Rocks. She's not going to do the crab fries and the cheesesteak, right? Like,
Got it.
she's
Got it.
Yeah, yeah. So
Got it.
it's hard to do the Jersey Shore with mom because it's like it's all pizza and cheesesteaks and funnel
Yeah,
cake down there.
yeah, yeah.
So. Well, Jason, this is a fun one. Again, we're dredging the memory banks here. This was almost a decade ago. This was 2016 that you guys were doing this, which means you were working on it in 2014, 2015. All right, well, Jason, I know that you're very busy with things like, and we're gonna do an episode, Jason,
Yes.
on the Clink Room because you guys are doing such cool stuff with that. And I keep, obviously I follow you and I follow Casey and I follow Brandiose on the socials, and I keep seeing these, like, super cool logos out there. So.
Yeah.
One of these days, we're going to sit down. We're going to do an episode of Baseball by Design on the Clink Room itself. In the meantime,
Yeah.
folks can find you at brandiose.com, all the socials at Brandiose, and theclinkroom.com.
Yep. And all the socials, the Clink Room.
The Clink Room. I got to make sure
Yeah.
I'm following you guys on all the socials. I follow all the
is.
Brandiose stuff. So,
And
All right.
if you're new, the Clink Room, imagine 6 new minor league baseball team logos, like fake logos, being introduced every week. That's
Holy
the
smokes.
concept.
We are going to delve deep into that in a future episode. And is it possible, Jason? Could we possibly get Casey on the podcast after all these years?
I'll have to talk to his agent.
All right. Jason, thank you. This has been fun. Great to see you again. And yeah, talk to you again soon.
All right, sounds good.
All right, everyone, welcome back. Hey, it's my very good friend, Dan Simon, who every single week on the Baseball by Design podcast creates, crafts, conjures a trivia question that we call a Studio Simon Stumper. Sometimes I am stumped. Sometimes I can suss it out. Sometimes I take a wild guess. Sometimes I just know the answer. We'll see what it is this time. Dan, hello. How you been?
I have been fantastic since the last time we spoke, and I am still fantastic. So anyway, did you know that the Stockton Ports were once owned by the grandchildren of a Hall of Fame team owner?
No.
Okay.
It took me, I needed to unpack that sentence for a little bit, but I knew the answer was going to be no.
Okay. Well, I do know that the Stockton Ports were once owned by the grandchildren of a Hall of Fame team owner. And I ask in today's studio, Simon Stumper, who was that grandfather? Was it A, Bill Veck, B, Walter O'Malley, or C, Connie Mack?
I have never heard Bill Veck's name associated with the Ports. I know that he's been involved with a lot of different teams. Connie Mack, similarly, I know he's done, the Connie Mack had some involvement with teams sort of more out east, I would think. And I'll tell you, Dan, there's something pinging at the back of my brain about Walter O'Malley and the connection to the Stockton Ports doing that Mudville 9 brand for some reason. I don't know what it is. It's pinging back there. It's like a hamster running on a rusty wheel. I don't know why my brain is trying to make that connection, but it is making me want to say that the answer to that question is Walter O'Malley.
Paul, I was smiling as you were saying all this because I can tell you say you don't remember the reason. I did not remember necessarily if I have told you what I'm about to tell you, but because you just said what you said, I think it's clear that I must have told you because you were correct in your answer. And here's why I'm certain I told you about this. Okay. Walter O'Malley. Well, first, let's talk about the other team owners.
Okay.
Bill Veck, famously he was owner of three teams: Cleveland Indians first, then the St. Louis Browns, who later became the Baltimore Orioles, and lastly, the Chicago White Sox, where he's probably best known for because he invented or came up with the exploding scoreboard. He famously had back then, I'm not going to say the word because we're not supposed to say it anymore. He had a little person come to the plate, sub 4 feet tall, I believe.
Yeah.
Eddie Goodell was his name,
Yeah.
and as well as other things that at the time were frowned upon, at least by the other owners. They hated what he was doing, and in time, it made him a Hall of Fame owner. So that's Bill Veck.
Yeah.
Connie Mack was the longtime owner of the Philadelphia Athletics.
Yeah.
And I believe your grandfather was a big Philadelphia A's fan. Yes.
He was until they left.
Connie Mack was also the manager of the Philadelphia A's for 50 years, which is
That's
obviously
crazy.
the all-time record. But the correct answer is Walter O'Malley. Now, Walter O'Malley was the owner of the Brooklyn Dodgers and moved them to Los Angeles. And he had two children. One was Peter O'Malley, and the other was Terry O'Malley. Now, Terry O'Malley married Rolland Seidler. So she is Terry O'Malley Seidler. And Terry and Rolland had 10 children. Peter O'Malley had 3 children. And so they were the children that owned the Stockton Ports. Now, one of Terry O'Malley Seidler's 10 children was Tom Seidler, who was a co-worker of mine when I worked for the Los Angeles Dodgers. I became very good friends with him. We had a fantasy baseball. We were owners of a fantasy baseball team called the Texarkana Corn.
That's
And
very funny.
I became good friends with him and also his cousin, Kevin O'Malley. And when the O'Malleys, Peter O'Malley and Terry O'Malley Seidler, sold the Los Angeles Dodgers, some of that money went to those grandchildren. And with some of that money, the grandchildren all pooled their money together and became owners of the Stockton Ports. And they later sold that team, basically did a swap with the Visalia Oaks, who are now the Visalia Rawhide. And so they became the owner of the Visalia Oaks. They changed the name to the Visalia Rawhide I developed that identity for them. I also did work for them when they owned the Stockton Ports. And they recently sold the Stockton Ports. And they owned it for, I think, 20 years. Never won a world championship until their final season. When they knew, I think they knew they were going to be selling the team. And in their final season, they won a world championship. They won a California League championship. And I would like to shout out to Tom Seidler and Kevin O'Malley. They had me on the championship ring recipient list. So I've got a Visalia Rawhide California League championship ring.
Dan, I wish I were the sort of person who could remember every detail of every conversation that I had ever had. But I am at least a little bit pleased that there was enough remaining in my brain to cause that pinging that rattled around back there that caused me to guess Walter O'Malley, because Tom Seidler, as you probably already know, back in March of 2023, was a guest on this very podcast on Baseball by Design. And that's why I was associating. It was an episode that we did about the Mudville Nine specifically, not about the Stockton Ports. So that is, I'm sure, your story there, and then the fact that Tom was on this podcast.
I'm sorry to interrupt. For those who may not have listened to that episode, when the O'Malley and Seidler cousins bought the Stockton Ports, they remained the Stockton Ports for a year or two, but the poem, Casey at the Bat, that involves the Mudville Nine, the researchers believe that Stockton was the Mudville Nine were based on a team that played in Stockton, California. And so the O'Malley and Seidler owners decided they were going to change the name of the team to the Mudville Nine. And they were the Mudville Nine until they sold the team to the owners of the Visalia Oaks. And they, the Seidlers and O'Malleys, they kept the Mudville Nine name. They still owned the rights to that name. So the new owners had to change, not had to, they chose to change the name back to Stockton Ports. They could have renamed it, but they chose to go back to Stockton Ports. So that's a story behind all that.
Dan, yet another successful and fun Studio Simon Stumper. We have not yet had anyone take us up on our offer to go back and re-listen to 4 years worth of this podcast and track my record on the Studio Simon Stumper. So I have no idea what my record is. Maybe there's some listener out there, Dan, who wants to go back and re-listen to the last 5 to 10 minutes of every episode and track my record on. If we were Smartless or Conan O'Brien or the recently retired Mark Maron, someone would do that, but I
know who might do it.
Oh, who's going to do it?
Since when I retire, I'm not going to become a shipping crane operator.
Yeah.
I'll need something to do.
Yeah.
So when I retire, I'll do it, Paul.
You could be not only the Baseball by Design in practice, but not nominal co-host, but also the Baseball by Design intern.
Okay, that'll give me something to do.
Dan, thank you as always, and we'll see you next week.
I'll see you then.